everyone, it's Pat Sloan here. We are on Black Wednesday, the kickoff of festivals and fireworks. There is block one. It's exciting. It's a big block. So what we're going to do today is first I have a couple things to share with you, and then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about the festivals and fireworks. And basically we're talking about half square triangles. This pattern is from the Fat Quarter Shop, written for their triangles on a roll. And I am going to show you two other ways to make triangles that I like. And we're going to just talk about all things triangles. But before we do that, I had something that came in the mail, which was so sweet, so sweet. This is from Jeanette in Kansas. Look at this card. Look at that. This is actually a Ruby Short McKim pattern, which you might recognize if you like vintage quilts. That's what's on the card there. But she sent me, she sent me a Starbucks. Yum, 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 yum. And she went to the factory store for the Albanese company, and she said it's outside north of Indianapolis, almost to Chicago. They have a factory store, and she got me gummies. Yes, I love them. I love them. Thank you so much. Mwah. Okay, other things. Yesterday, several of our friends wrote and said that they thought my half square triangles here were too big, that my moon was a little skinny. So let's take a look at that. So you can see definitely a little skinny. Somehow I made them big. I made them all the same size, but they're a little big. So I deconstructed the pattern back just to where I needed to and rebuilt it. I had enough fabric to make another one, but for some reason in my head I thought it would be faster to to take it apart. I don't know if it was or not, but anyways, in like 30 minutes I had it fixed, so no big deal. Then I got I got some other of my little stars done, so I only have 2 more of the little stars that I'm working on. So anyways, I'd already switched the picture out. You may have seen on my blog that the bottom picture looked a little different than the top one if you were looking that detailed. It wasn't that noticeable, but I'm happy to have it fixed, so thank you for those who wrote me. Okay, the other thing, this. Where is what I need to show you? Okay, hold on. I found it. It was actually right in front of me. Mikasa. So this is the Sew Sampler box for May. This is the exclusive pattern that comes in it. And we got the fruit cocktail fabric, the layer cake pieces, the 10-inch squares. Well, I had to get started. Here we go. I am using the layer cakes, from there and from the Sew Sampler box. And then I went and got this Spring Hill fabric that I showed you the other day. Remember the fabric with the chickens and the panel with the aqua truck? This is the background fabric that I picked up from that line. And I love it with this because there's large half square triangles coming up, and I wanted something which had some pattern in it, and I have enough of this. So that's the other thing, is I have it on hand and I have enough. I actually bought 4 yards. For those that are always asking, I bought 4 yards of this. Also, I just want to give you a little tip. When you are cutting layer cake pieces, when you know you don't have any more of the fabric, be sure you are always on your A game. Do not be talking to your husband while you are doing the cutting because I cut this too short, so I had to add to it. Hey, that's the way it is. There's only 1 square of that, and I looked around, and I could substitute. I have another piece of fig tree in the same color, but I'm like, why? Why? I will just use it. No big deal. Okay, now on to festivals and fireworks. The Fat Quarter Shop did this fabulous pattern. Fabulous pattern here with all kinds of blocks that have half square triangles. And I thought this is just perfect for Block Wednesday for the summer. It's easy. Many of you have gotten used to doing half square triangles now, because how can you make a quilt without a half square triangle? I'm sorry, you can't. There's the answer. You can't. So learning how to do them is important. And today I want to show you 3 different ways, because the pattern is written for on a roll. It was made to use these so people could practice them and whatever. So the pattern itself, you have to print. You have to use this pattern along with my guide sheets that'll come out each week while we're doing this, because they have all the diagrams about how they assembled and things like that. I'm not redoing all of their work. All I'm doing is giving you a guide sheet to how you could cut it for using a different, for the different methods, for the three methods, well, the two other methods, because the first method is they have the cutting for how you do it for triangles on the roll. So when I do each pattern now, let me just get this one so I can hold it up. This is a nice big block, I believe. Okay, the block is 32 inches in the center. So this is the great big centerpiece, and you just make one large block like this. After that, we'll be doing 2 blocks at a time. So I named this first one, the whole theme is festivals and fireworks. So basically it's, you know, festivals, all kinds of festivals. And this one is inspired, you know, the theme for it is the rides, the carnival rides. So, you know, all kinds of fun rides like bumper cars and Ferris wheels and the fun house and, you know, just the spinner things, all those different types of rides that you find at the carnival. My favorite is the Ferris wheel. Just seeing a Ferris wheel, it's like, you know, it's a circle. I love circles. Circles, circles. Show you the 3 different methods and then demo all 3 of them so that you can decide, you know, you could try each time, or even just parts of the block. The size and the square, half square triangle ends up identical. It doesn't matter which way you start, which method you start with, the ending is identical. So if you wanted to try some different methods because you haven't done that before, this is a great project to do that this summer. Also, if you have your Accuquilt and you have not been using it or just got it or haven't used it in a long time, this is perfect for trying that out. And the worksheet I gave you to go with the pattern, like to get started, this tells you all the different things that you need for what we're doing. All right, let's go the other side. So all 3 techniques or ways to make a half square triangle that I'm going to show you today all result in the exact same thing. And there are 3 sizes for the entire quilt when we're doing the entire quilt. So there'll be 2-inch, 3-inch, and 4-inch half square triangles in order to make the whole quilt. This is all done with 4-inch finish. When I say 4-inch, it's 4.5, and then once it's in the quilt, it's 4-inch. So you might see the terminology. You have to be really careful when you're reading, but it is a 4.5-inch, 4-inch finished. Okay, so let's look at the 3 ways. One is the triangles on a roll, and that is with these papers, and you'll be sewing on the papers and then you remove the paper. It's extremely accurate. A lot of, this is rolling. A lot of people really love this for the accuracy. They love paper piecing, so pulling the paper off afterwards is not a big deal for them. And it gives you all the directions, and it's really concise. So this is a great option, and the original pattern by the Fat Quarter Shop is written for this because they are the manufacturers of these now. They purchased the company several years ago. Let me just tell you before I go any further that on the website today for my article, and then on the project page, I will link you to Kimberly's really full blown out tutorial on using triangles on the roll, because it is already done, it's extensive, and so you can just go and watch hers. Okay, the other 2 ways that we're going to talk about are the Go, which is the Accuquilt, and these are dies, and they create die cuts. And everything is cut. You can cut multiples at a time. It cuts the little dog ears off, and once you run it through, it's done. And you just go to the machine and you sew it. So we have those, and I'll open that when I talk about that and show you the die. And then last is the trimming tool, where we do 2 at a time, and we will draw a line, sew on either side, and then trim it with this to be accurate. And you can trim off the dog ears before you press it open as well, so that it is all complete. So it has a couple of trimming steps. So this is a little oversized. These will be cut accurate, and these will be cut, you know, triangles on a roll are cut accurate. Once you're done, no extra trimming. These, once they're cut, they're ready. There's no extra trimming. So they each have their things about them that you have to, you know, think about. Okay, let's start with triangles on a roll. So let me just shift things around. In the pattern that you downloaded for the whole project, it is done for the triangles on the roll, the cutting directions. So there you will see how big a sheet to cut for them, and then the diagrams. After you've made the half square triangle, the diagrams are used for every technique, so that's not any different. But here is all the cutting for getting these ready. So basically, for triangles on a roll, you will have either sheets of multiples like this one, or you could have sheets of singles like this one. So here they're you don't have quite as many. It's already trimmed down for you. It's kind of like a old-fashioned paper tape. And then all this grid work is here so that you know where your sewing lines are. So looking at this, you're making multiples at once rather than like just two at a time, or with the Accuquilt it is also multiples at once. So each of these units, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 12 half square triangles that you're making here if you've cut off just this much. There are arrows that tell you sew like this, and you're sewing on the dotted line, but the arrows tell you the direction so that you will get what you need to do, come along like this, and then you're actually always sewing on the dotted line though. Then you will cut on this line. So how do you get this prepared? You take your sheets of fabric. So you will have, let me just pull back. You'll have your 2 fabrics for your half square triangle, these big rectangles, you'll layer them. Then you'll put the paper facing you because you need to see the sewing directions and you need to see the line to sew on. And then you just take some pins where there's no lines and you'll pin everything. And so that is how you will get it ready to sew. Go along like this. So here's the paper for triangles on a roll, and you're sewing on the stitching line, or it looks like stitching, a little dash line, like right there. And then I just travel. Like Kimberly's video gives you all kinds of tips and things, but this is the basics. So I travel over here till I can turn and pivot, and then now I will be stitching all along here. It's actually very satisfying to stitch on here. You might want to take your needle length down, stitch length down 1, just because you are going to put some tension to pull those out, pull the paper out when you're done. So you just continue on that way, following all the arrows until you have sewn across all of the lines. See, there's that one right there. So to take these apart now, you will cut on the line, the solid lines. Everything is cutting on the solid lines. When you watch Kimberly, she takes you through every little possible step of this so that you won't mess up. You can watch hers to get all the really minutia detail of how to use these. Mine's kind of an overview. Then you will keep cutting on the solid lines again. And then here I will cut this square, and then at that point the square will be cut in half to get the half square triangle like this. So we have here, and then now if you want the no dog ears, the little points so that they're just nice and clean, I just angle those off, and then you can just take this and fold it back. This paper is really thin, it tears away easily. It's a foundation paper, so very easily it comes off. People like doing this, they can just do a bunch and then pull them off while they're watching TV or something, or visiting with people. They don't need, it's kind of mindless. Then you would press it open and you would have your half square triangle. These are the tiny ones. These are 1 inch finished. This next method is 2 at a time. So you're going to have 2 squares, and I walk you through right here all the parts that you need to cut for this quilt using the color layout that I am using. And so we have 5 inch squares. So let's take a look at that method. And this is the one that's on the back of every one of my patterns. So you have a sheet like this, and it's on the guide sheet today again, telling you you'll be ending up trimming them to 4.5. And so we are doing 2 at a time, where you can draw a line. So I want to use a ruler that's long enough, not that one. We'll use this one. So you can draw a line right here, a pen, a pencil. This is your cut line, so it doesn't really matter what it is. I have a guide beam on my machine, so I use the guide beam. Then I'm going to sew on either side, and then I'll trim it. So here is the line, and I am just sewing 1/4 of an inch from it on both sides. There's lots of different ways you can do this. I have a 1/4 inch foot on. I generally will have my guide beam. Let me just switch this. I'm just going to pull it up, pull it out a bit, and I'm going to put my guide beam on. Now you can see my guide beam, and it's a double guide beam. Some of the machines only have one. My Solaris has two. So I don't need to draw the line because my guide beam will be doing that for me as I go along. And I go to the end, and I will have this one done. So following the diagram, we are going to cut down the center. I was put it on this side because I think hopefully you can see the threads on this side. I guess I should have sewn this with black thread, but you know, I didn't. So there we go. Now, on the other side, the white thread, I don't think you can see at all. But we were going to take, I'll turn it this way because I think you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So here I'm going to trim. The stitching line is right here, and I want the 4.5. So on here you've got 1.5, 2, 3.5, 4, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, all the way down to 6.5. And then if you flip the other way is if you're doing full numbers. But we want a 4.5 inch half square triangle. Finishes to 4. This is the size you want to cut. This is your before you sew it into the quilt size. So 4.5. So we put it along the line, put that along the seam line. There we go. And there's very little waste, but there is a little bit. You have to trim a little bit. So trim away like here. And then I trim the little dog ears off just manually. But I will show you that if you like, a little bit more control, you can take this and use it to trim the dog ears by putting the 4.5 on either side after it's done. See the 4.5, but it's pointed the other way. Whoops, it's pointed the other way. And then you can just trim your dog ears like this. So that's another way to do it. So now I have big half square triangles. And last we'll do half square triangles with the Accuquilt die cut machine. And so this is a unit that comes with one of the boxes. This happens to be from the 8-inch box. And I'm just going to be showing you how the die is. There is a lot to do with the Accuquilt and so much great information out there. You can go and watch all kinds of videos. But the boxes come with either collections like this came in. You can open them up and they'll tell you everything you need to know. So here is our 4-inch finished. So it says 4-inch finished square right under the big word go, and that is what we want. This is the die that we want. It gives you a little pattern in there, and here is what the die looks like. And so it is foam, but right where the lines are is where the cutter is, and when you run it through, it presses it and cuts your fabric. We will be using the die, the sheet, the protection sheet that goes on top, and some fabric. And when I'm cutting for my dies, and lots of people have lots of different ways to do this, I am by no means the end-all way. It says I tend to look at the die itself and decide, like, how big a piece do I need to cut. So you can take your ruler and you can just sort of, you have to cut a little bit bigger. Has to have a little bit of waste, but you're not trimming the waste. So you cut a little bit bigger. If you have issues with mobility or things like that, you can cut, and if you don't mind having a little bit more waste, you don't have to be quite as fussy with your cutting. You can be much tighter and more precise. It just depends on you and what you want to do. So I cut squares just a little bit bigger. And I have 3 sets because I'm going to have, so here's my set of squares. You can see underneath here, I've got the die, and I'm covering out past the edge. It has to go past the edge on all 4 sides. And so you get whatever size you feel comfortable with, and you cut it. And then you can layer. So you can layer like 6 on here. and do them all at once. So you cut them, you layer them all at once. If you're layering, be sure that you don't get them shifted a little bit so that they're not going to be right, at the edge of the die. And then we will end up with these, units. But because I'm going to put the fabrics right side together, when I take them off, all I have to do is go right to the sewing machine and sew them. I don't have to place them again. They're going to come off of here together, and I'm going to put the other layer on top. We're going to put the sheet over here, the plastic sheet, and go run it through the machine. So I'll meet you over there. So here's my setup that you always see behind me. Normally this is folded up. It just folds like this and stands up. And to open it, we go like this. It's incredibly simple. I highly recommend that you get the electric one, if at all possible. Save your pennies. The Go Big. It is a life changer. For those of you particularly with mobility issues with your hands, this is amazing. So here are my boxes of most used dies. These are some blank boxes so I could put in what I had bought as single dies. Here is the box that I showed you came out of, because that came from the 8-inch block cube, which has all of these dies came with it. There's some patterns, all kinds of good stuff. Their website is amazing for Accuquilt. All right, so this is the little stack I have ready. So all these are going to get cut at once. I will put the plastic sheet on top. The machine is so simple. All you do is plug it in. There's the plug. It is on. Here's off, on. That's it. Nothing else. So easy. So now we just take this and run it through. You just hold it until it starts running on its own, and it comes out the back side. And I'm filming this with one hand, so let me just scoot this off. Ooh, with one hand. It's always so exciting. Okay. There you go. You can see it trimmed away, and you can see my triangles now are together. It's easier when I can do it with the other hand available. So you can see all the sets. Oops, I picked that one up too weirdly. So they will be together. I got that one. What did I do there? There you go. All your triangles are together. And then all I have to do is pick this up and go to the sewing machine and sew it. Okay, so the weirdness is I had an extra sheet of white in there, an extra white fabric in there. Don't know how that happened. So these are all ready to go. This is the waist. So you can have even less waist than this if you're super frugal. But I think this is pretty darn good. It is practically what I would do with doing 2 at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 of them ready to sew. Let's go do it. Here's the stack all ready to sew. You just pick them up. You don't have to line them up or anything. You put them right sides together through the Accuquilt, and then you're just doing your 1/4 inch seam. You're coming along, super easy, and sewing all the way to the end. You can zoom along, and you have your half square triangle sewn. No trimming, no anything. It is finished right like this. So I am so happy to have you join me on this Block Wednesday. It is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to see what fabrics you're using. Mine is all done with my porch swing, and I'm just so excited about it. Okay, I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being here in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online.